Artcasters, episode 426. We are on a retreat with the guys from Making Comics. And
sorry.
And others.
Moment.
And others.
yes.
Sorry.
Let's go around and introduce yourselves. I'm Corey Curry. You can find my stuff at CoreyCurry.com. Jim is right here to give us a flat out after
the whole thing. I got it.
30
Okay,
minutes.
we're
Making
good.
sure that didn't happen.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So you can find my stuff. Gary, where can we find your stuff?
You can check me out on Instagram under Dinosaurs vs. Marsbots, Dinosaurs vs. Marsbots, or here on YouTube under my name, Gary Hodges.
Cool. And Scott, where can we find your stuff?
Which Scott? Oh,
Oh,
okay. All right. You can find my stuff at circworks.com or my YouTube channel, Circworks Art Labs on YouTube, where you will find just a bunch of cool videos. If you're into making comics, there's a ton of comic-related videos, and I'm doing some really cool stuff with nostalgia, recreating it, and all kinds of cool stuff. You got to see it to believe it, so check it out on Circworks Art Labs on YouTube. Keith.
You can find me at keithrfoster.com. That is where you can find all of my books. And you can also find me and, am I pointing the right way? I am, me and the homie Scott Lost every Monday on your favorite podcaster talking, making comics, because that's a podcast he and I do.
Josh, where can we find your stuff?
Here, let's pass the torch. Oh! We're in the same room. That's crazy. Anyhow,
That's weird because our location is way better.
I know.
I know. We are all in the same room, even though our lighting and backgrounds look a little
I
different.
just want to see how good I look from this side.
We have been keeping them in the secret room in the cabin. But yeah, so I'm Joshua Kemble, and my hype men back here are going to tell you to buy 2 stories for Jacob's Apartment, or 2 great indie graphic novels, and also check out Modern Monsters, the album. And with that, I will pass it on to Mr. Scott Lost.
And I'm Scott Lost, and you can get my stuff over at accidentalaliens.com. Second Shift, Minimum Wage Superheroes, Wander's Mill, Sonday, Anthropomorphic Dinosaurs versus Humans, and Astounding Adventures has a couple other titles from me. Or you can find me at Scott Lost on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, and Facebook.com/Scott Lost.
And last and least.
And we don't need to introduce anybody else. So the top.
Jim is actually by himself. He's not with us. He's in
There's a reason
secluded
Jim's by
area.
He's in
himself.
solitary. He's
No
really
one
in
wanted
his
to sit
car.
by him.
Me and by myself. I'm Jim Lujan, all alone,
This is a Make-A-Wish situation.
all by myself. And I'm here to tell you that I think your guys' lifestyle's okay with me. So, you guys are all really beautiful couples.
That's nice. The back lighting does not do Scott Circling justice, okay?
So Pepsi Cola saying that he likes how it looks like completely separate rooms.
Yeah.
It's a good fake out.
That was the point. We wanted to fake you out. It's not that this is the only room we can do this in.
Yeah.
Okay, you gotta go way back. And Scott, was that you did one on your channel? We did one on my channel.
Yeah,
When did we do it on yours?
I don't remember those.
So Scott,
I think
go watch every video
Yeah,
on
every
both
video.
Scott Circle's channel and my channel. No, but I visited Scott years ago, and we set it up so that we had a split screen, and it looked like we were in 2 different places, and then we reached across.
Yeah, we had a fake half of a fake background behind us, like if you were doing a photo shoot. Imagine half a fake one, so it looked like we were split screen, and then we're like, oh.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So we're going to talk about this art retreat. Keith, do you want to tell us? Were you the impetus for this, or who started?
Well, that's a good
Gary,
question. I
wasn't
mean,
it?
I know.
I
Well,
think it was maybe originally me.
Yeah,
I
it was.
saying-
Did you invite everyone to somebody else's house?
I didn't initially. I wanted to get together 2 of our guests here in particular. I wanted to get together Josh, and actually they're both on the same side. The ones in the brew pub up here, Josh and Scott, and for some photo references for the upcoming latest issue of D vs. M 2001. And my suggestion was, why don't we all meet in Joshua Tree or something.
I thought you said in Joshua's tree.
No, that's just how you.
That's going to be a different art.
That's a different one. Joshua Tree.
There are no trees where Josh lives.
Oh, that's better than Jackson's Hole.
It's a trick question.
You know, like
The
an
Alamo doesn't have
Airbnb
a
or
basement.
something. But then I think when I floated, it's like, let's do art retreat. Whoever wants to make the drive can go. And you generously volunteered, Keith Foss.
Yeah.
Said like, well, I've got the Crestline house.
Mhm.
Why not we all just come here?
Yep.
And I was, hey, if you're
Yeah.
willing to host all us maniacs.
Yeah, and Scott and I have had a few of these retreats, and we've talked about it in the course of the Making Comics podcast. I mean, the vibes are good up here. They're nice and creative. It's quiet. It's close enough to society where there's a lot of stuff to do. It's far enough to where it can be quiet if you want. You know, one car on average goes by about every hour, something like that, right? So yeah, good vibes, and yeah, I've gotten a lot of stuff done up here. I think Scott has too. So
Yeah.
we're sharing the love.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's that sense of isolation, but not in the bad way. You know, you're far enough from main civilization to where you can kind of concentrate on creating and, you know, making whatever you're doing. If you're on the script end of it, the art end, whatever you're doing, it's nice to get away and kind of basically separate yourself from everyday life. You might have things that come up. You might be used to working from home, but then, you know, maybe you're married and your wife wants some help, or the kids need some help, or you got to take the dog out, you know, so a lot of stuff can get in the way from creating, even though it doesn't seem like a lot of time, it is time away from it. So when we do these, it's 100% concentrating, except for the first night. A lot of not of that, but, you know, everyone's seeing each other for the first time ever or in a while, and kind of, you know, hanging out.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about this is it just reiterates to me, this has happened with every meetup with Artcasters people and people in the outer circle as well, where it's just like so fun to meet people that you can click with very quickly and have a ton in common with, and like you already know most of them, like from like just us all hanging out on the internet. So it feels like people I know.
Yeah.
You know? So like, yeah, that first night we all like hung out just felt really fun because it's like, oh, it's just like a bunch of friends. And also, you know, a bunch of nerds that do comics and animation, you know. Yeah. How often do you get that?
Yeah, and I would say if you're watching this, obviously, I mean, you're probably a creative, so get together with some of your other creatives and make this kind of thing happen. It doesn't happen. I mean, somebody's got to instigate it. So in this case, it was Gary.
Yeah.
But we'd all talked about it.
Mhm.
But it actually took Gary to kind of pull the trigger and make it happen. So thanks for that, Gary. But yeah, I mean, really, there's really nothing like it. If you have a group of people that you talk with online and stuff like that, and if it's possible, and we had, you know, Corey probably came the farthest, I think.
Yeah.
And originally we didn't think we were going to be able to get everyone here, but it happened. And I mean, I was so stoked when I heard. First, kind of Josh was a little bit on the edge, even though he lives here. And Corey, we were like, oh, we got to enroll Corey. We got to get Corey to come out here. And so we made it happen. So, I mean, I don't know how, even if we do make this like, which I'm hoping we make this like an annual thing, who knows if we'll be able to do this all again, you know,
Everyone.
with everyone.
Yeah.
So
Next time we'll do it at my place and see how many of you guys.
that would, well, yeah,
That would actually be a really cool
That would be
spot.
cool.
What,
Yeah.
are you in Utah? Is that where?
I mean,
you're-
Idaho.
Idaho. Oh, okay.
So yeah, even more remote.
Okay.
So,
I've never
I'm
been
trying to
there.
figure if I'm supposed to just continue to look at the camera when I'm talking to you, even though you're.
I know.
I thought
I was
that's
gonna
it.
say
So
you're-
I'm like
Where's
staring at this, but I could feel you staring at me. And I'm like, I have to look up.
I think you made
That
a
is
really
a funny
interesting
dynamic because
point.
usually
Yeah.
if you're on a show or like a stream, you're just paying attention to this like
Yeah.
dot here,
Right.
you know.
Right. Yeah.
Why
But,
the hell is
yeah.
Steve looking to his right
Yeah.
when Josh talks?
I want to know, honestly, you guys don't just stare at yourself, or am I just that vain? Like when
I do make sure I don't. Yeah.
I can't-
Try to-
I stare to
But
myself as a form of critique, right? It's like, oh my god, I look awful.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
happened? Who
that's
is
what I
that?
do.
Who is that moron?
Who is that guy?
Okay, so yeah, so that's kind of the kickoff. So are we suggesting you just meet people on the internet and then you just go to their house?
Craigslist.
I mean, these are obviously
Whatever
people
app,
that you would
Grindr,
know. I
I
mean,
don't know.
even though
Maybe a little
some
vague.
of us, I've met everyone here in person before, but not everyone has.
Sure.
But we know. I mean, even before I met most of these people, we knew each other enough just from being online.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, I'm sure everyone has people that you interact with online, and
Well,
creative.
I mean, we're all public
there's a huge
figures.
difference between the
Famous.
300 plus episodes that we've done together,
Yes.
you know, and that type of thing, and just like putting something out on Craigslist or something.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, whatever you're into.
Yeah.
So,
And I think
Artcasters,
Gary,
not the judgment
another.
casters.
I want to, give thanks to Gary one more time because he's the one that kind of pulled the Making Comics podcast and the Artcasters together
That's
too.
right, across the stream.
Yeah, he crossed the stream. So
This
that
guy
was
right here.
yeah.
Mhm. So, if it had not worked out, I would have denied all responsibility.
this is a terrible idea. Who
Yeah.
what's this? Who thought of
I
this?
could have told you that wasn't going to work.
Okay, so I want to know. I haven't done too many of these. I've done conferences,
Mhm.
and I've done half of one of these now. So what are some of the benefits? Like we talked about, kind of a different setting and a little bit of an exclusion or a little bit of isolation. I kind of alluded to being around other creative people.
Yeah, I mean, because as artists, I think typically a lot of us are probably more solitary people. So at least with other creatives, we might not get to. I mean, especially where you are, you talk about this all the time, Corey, where maybe there's not as many creative people around in your area. So being able to get out and actually meet in person and share ideas. I mean, there's so many things. It's just a little different when when there's a group of people just here. Like I'm working on this new comic and Josh is throwing out ideas. Oh, what if you did this? And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And and there's just all these voices and all these people like just kind of working on their own things, but they might hear an idea and like, oh wow, what if you do this or whatever.
Yeah.
And plus, there's a lot of just craziness going on here too. Just having fun and enjoying ourselves as well. So.
Yeah, I've talked a lot in the past that I think, especially for creatives, community is really important. I think if you're in college or art school or whatever you're doing, or you're in a club, you can take for granted the fact that there will always be creatives around, other fellow artists that you can talk to that understand what you're doing and relate to just that lifestyle and wanting to create things. Most people you come across in day-to-day life do not have that chip. They're not going to understand. They're not going to be able to be helpful. They're not going to be able to help you with a script or look at a drawing or do anything really constructive. But also, I think most importantly, they're not going to be able to connect with you in a way where you're just like, oh, I'm pulling my hair out about the script, and that doesn't mean anything to them. Like they're pulling their hair out trying to pay their bills. They don't know what
or not even that. I think the majority of the people are actually doing numbing behavior to try to suppress what most creatives are leaning into.
Well, and I don't want to derail, but there's a lot of baggage. I think some people, they might have felt the call once upon a time to be a poet, to be in a band, to paint, and they decided not to do that because it was difficult and because they were scared. It's like, I'll do something safe.
Right.
And if you do it, that's a little bit of a threat to their choice.
Well,
like
how many-
you kind of remind them, like, I could have done that and I didn't.
How many times have you guys been talking to somebody and you tell them about your thing and they immediately start giving you excuses on why they're not doing something?
Yeah,
I wasn't
right,
even
yeah,
talking
right.
about you.
Corey and I used to experience this all the time with 48-hour art check too, where we if you just describe to people what we were doing with that, which was just checking in with each other every 48 hours to make it almost like accountability partners.
Yeah.
We did that for like 3-4 years, something like that.
That was 285 episodes.
Yeah, and you describe it to people and they'd instantly be like, oh, well, I have a project and I'm going to be working on it, but I'm not working on it because of this. And they start giving you excuses. And
Or they
like,
start
but I'm
talking
not
about,
even
well,
telling
I couldn't, that wouldn't work for me because of,
Yeah.
and it's like,
And you're like, I wasn't even saying it would work for you.
Well, Keith and I basically do the same thing where, we do the podcast every week, every Monday, we record. And so, if you've never listened to the podcast, it's essentially, hey, what'd you do this week? like creatively. So Keith will either talk about the comics he's working on or the novel he's working on, or maybe he got art back from one of his collaborators, something like that. And I do the same. I talk about the projects that I'm working on. So every week you have to have something. So even though we're not checking in every 48 hours, it's a weekly thing. It's like, all right, dude, what'd you do?
Yeah.
And it's like, if anything, you don't want to look bad because your partner's over there hustling and you're not. And like Keith and I in general, we're very productive people.
Yeah.
So, but to have that kind of accountability is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so that's why this was important to me too. Was like, to reinforce that connection and community.
Yeah, I will say that I'm going to lead with my most unexpected pleasant surprise, right? Which is
meeting Corey Kerr.
I mean,
the kind of strange manly energy I put off.
It's your Musk.
So
Musk, yeah.
that was
I
expected.
get it a lot.
But
Get it a lot.
expected.
Yes.
That's the problem. This is unexpected.
Okay, I'm
Like,
sorry. Yeah,
read the
unexpected.
headings, Gary.
Unexpected.
Yeah.
Must.
I think it's the same thing that people in other jobs talk about, like being in person matters.
Yeah.
Right. Being in person helps, and I think all of us are productive enough and motivated enough to where we're fine as is, but there is something very special to just being able to two examples, in both involving Gary actually. In my case, because I came up here with the guise of I'm going to write this short story. As of this morning, I realized I don't think I should write this short story. I think it's a bad idea. Comics.
Remix. That's my fault. My bad. That's why I'm not supposed
We are
to
not
touch
in Monterey. Yeah.
What happened?
We had a system here.
God damn it, Scott, don't touch this.
Scott Lost is a wizard, and when he gets too close to the electronic
That's
screw,
true, yeah.
it
Magnetic
starts to
energy.
break down.
Yeah.
It was his vibration.
So it's this thing of being able to just go like, hey Gary, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And like in a couple of our cases, we send stuff to each other.
Yeah.
And you send stuff to each other, and they're going to respond, but it's also not going to be quick. Like 15 minutes before we recorded here, I had finished the first 5 pages of a comic that's pretty close to done, and I was like, "Oh, here, Gary, take a look." Right?
Yeah.
He was able to read it
Just before we got on.
give me a few quick notes, and that's that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like that's the thing I didn't think all the way through in terms of expecting.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, it's great. You can just you bounce ideas off, you do that kind of thing.
Well, something I find really helpful along those lines is I will often, whether it's a pitch at work or whether I'm working through an idea or a joke or a phrase or something, being able to watch other people's reaction in real time is super helpful, because you can tell when it's a little boring, or when it is hitting or working, or when people get slightly confused. All of that in asynchronous communication.
All the degrees of I liked it. There's sort of like it's good, and there's like it's good.
Right.
Like you're really getting all that and
Yeah.
everything in between. Yeah.
Yeah, like what do you think of this?
This big long pause.
It's good.
Yeah.
Right.
Is this final? Is this, yeah.
What draft are you on?
Oh, it is. Oh,
it's good. Huh.
Wow.
Wow. I didn't know you were gonna.
So what else do you
So
do?
I feel like one of the things that's
Did
pretty
you finish
rad,
that electrician certification?
one of the things that's pretty rad about this community. Wow, that was
I
the
mean,
nose.
one of my record frames wants to jump on the podcast.
They're like, this is
Or a
not
bear.
going well.
Who knows?
Everybody
it's
feels
just
died tonight.
self-double.
It's because of the poltergeist.
So like one of the things that of all the people here, one of the first people I started hanging out with a long time ago was Jim, and we do these meetups like in person and stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was like keeping each other accountable. And there were questions. How did that work with the clam with an M, not N meetings?
Good. Thank you for the distinction.
I mean,
That's
really
good.
spell it.
Just
Yes.
Really make it clear. Yeah.
I'm awkwardly switching cameras so that we get your reaction to his statement and his reaction to yours.
Are we gonna go right? Okay.
Okay.
Or Jim
What?
Taylor.
I look
Yeah.
like Josh.
That was good.
Well, for one important thing happened this weekend. is that Scott Lost knows now that I do not live in my car.
I don't know that I know that.
We
Yeah.
know that you
How would you
demonstrated
know
a
that?
body of evidence very small.
We know that you
Contrary,
haven't lived
right.
in your car for the last 2 nights.
Right.
Well,
Right.
yes.
Until you host an art retreat, how would we know?
You showed up. You showed up
That's
literally
retreat
in your
in
home.
Jim's
He
car.
rented a big car
Yeah.
for the art retreat.
He's gonna get an RV.
So the next retreat, he just has a minivan. And we just drive for 48 hours.
That would be
No, it's
fun,
good for
actually.
creative vibes.
We
end up in
drive around the
Mexico.
world as our own.
Yeah, I'll pick you up and drop you off. This has been really a dream come true, right? Because it is really fun to just sit in a corner and create, and
Literally.
having the other guys in their corners creating, and it's been really good. And most importantly, I think I've been able to record them
Yeah.
when they knew
Expound,
and when they
please.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about some of the stuff that we've been doing?
I
Yeah,
am
we
a
should
solid
share- you should
sleeper,
start us
so
off.
I
Talk
think
about what you've
that's
been
when
doing.
a lot of the recording was
Well, before I do that, I wanted to play this.
Yeah.
This is what we did. And those are the sounds of our
My
retreat.
favorite part about that is you held that up to your camera and
Mhm.
not the microphone.
Explain to me
Hey,
this
listen
technology.
to
See
this.
the sound?
Listen,
Well, the microphone's right here, but
it is, but you still went right next to this guy. Don't deny it.
all right.
Don't be a camera denier.
So, anyways, so
It happened.
it was fun for a while, but just things turn fast.
Fun times has ended. No, so that's been something that's really interesting. So Gary came, you shipped props
I did.
ahead of time,
Yes.
right? And then just watching the two of you both get photo reference,
Mhm.
you're like, I'm going to take 5,000 pictures.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about it for 2 weeks ahead of time. I've
Yeah.
shipped props there.
Yeah.
Jim walks up and hands me a gun and goes, lay on the ground and hold this up in the air. And then it was over. That was it.
Which is not the first time I've told them that. So, yeah,
Yeah,
anyways,
it's been-
thank you for that too, by the way.
But I would say it's felt like everyone has been doing pretty distinctly different things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like here, I mean, you're thumbnailing, Josh.
Mhm.
You're actually doing final panels. It
Mhm.
looks like you're doing concept design,
Mhm.
writing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking reference photos.
I'm having an existential crisis.
You're having references.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing a lot of audio and animating. I mean, and we're all in different nooks of this house, just sitting and doing our thing. And what's really fun about it is you're overhearing other people do their thing.
Yeah.
And you're getting pulled. Like it was today where Jim ran up. He's like, I need you to do some more voices for Full Fungus.
Mhm.
So we went off to a quiet corner, and I was like doing stupid voices for you. But and then back to my thing. It's fun.
And I got to overhear the conversations, the writing conversations
Yeah.
that have been going on. That's been really interesting. So it's like living in a hippie commune, except we don't go out at night and kill people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I mean,
Except for the
it's
person
only
that
day
was
2.
supposed
That's
to be
true.
saying
That's true.
that.
The night is young.
Yes.
Scott Lost nailed it though, in the sense of when he was talking about like that feeling of like almost like the gauntlet being thrown when you're hanging out with creatives. Like I've always felt this with whenever I show up to Artcasters too, where it's like if I come empty-handed, I feel like
Yeah.
lame.
Oh, can you
You know?
imagine how uncomfortable if you showed up with nothing
Yeah.
and you were just sitting around?
What if you just
Yeah.
showed up with like a Nintendo Switch?
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just sat-
That's
Yeah.
so an environment like this where like every once in a while I'm getting like these little sneak peeks at like what Jim's editing, or you're just hearing hilarious audio from it, or you're hearing like you guys workshop a story, or I look over and there's Scott just like drawing this like rad robot, and Gary's like working on his masterpiece. It's like Corey's working on his next story part, kind of trying to get through like a plot issue at the end, and like we're all kind of workshopping. It's like in that environment you want to be working,
Yeah.
because like you don't want to be the one guy who's not working.
It's encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was cool hearing like different, like, so I've been on the Artcasters, I think maybe twice, maybe 3 times at the most, and I've got to know Corey more on this trip than I ever talked to him on Artcasters. Like
Right.
the episodes I've been on, he's relatively quiet. And I'm like, okay, I kind of still don't know who that guy is.
Yeah.
So like to meet you guys in person and kind of get a better idea of your personalities and like the stuff you do. Like Corey was telling me his whole story. He's like, I'm stuck on this thing. And I'm like, well, you know, like part of the retreat is listening to each other and seeing if you can help. And so I was like, well, tell me about the story. And he told me the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, this is super interesting. I was like, all right, tell me more. And so it was cool to kind of get in depth on a project that I'd never heard anything about, and, you know, get used to or get to know new creatives, you know.
Yeah, I would, you know, to kind of stitch together a few things that have come up recently here. Listen has come up a lot.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing I was going to mention, where like, you know, look, doing stuff yourself is cool. Doing stuff as a retreat with one other person is cool. The dynamic is different. And it's neither better nor worse, but you know, in this case, because it's fresh, it's been really interesting because crosstalk can happen and you don't have to talk, you know, and I think that's really, it's cool. You can pick a moment and you can participate, or you can just hear something cool and go on top of it, or you can just sit back, you know, and actually put cruise control on, and somebody's going to talk about something. And you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then you do your thing.
Yeah,
I think we've all mentioned that. Like crosstalk from other people, it's great. It gives you the ability to kind of move in and out of however you want in the conversation.
Yeah, there were a couple times out on the deck where there were like 2 or 3 different conversations between going on. Like a couple people be talking, a couple people talking over here, and then I'm sitting here kind of just chilling, listening, and like, okay, which
Well, hey, I
recorded
everything.
No, I found
Hold it
a
up to the
couple
camera.
times. I think we talked about it at one point. I was half listening to 2 conversations and not quite getting both. So I need to pick one here because I keep bouncing back.
I have conversational FOMO. Like every time I'm in a situation like that, I'm like, and I'm like, I'm getting nothing because I'm getting like 2% of each conversation.
Jim, it was earlier today though, Jim, you were saying that it felt like a cafe for a second there, where it just kind of felt like we were in a coffee shop or something.
Yeah,
here,
right
there's all
here.
the ambience,
and
people joking and laughing and talking, and it's like there is something really cool about that without having to be at a coffee shop.
But also the casual element of like, I'm gonna go take a nap, or I'm gonna go like I'm gonna have a beer, you know, or something like that. So it's a little loose, a little free.
You don't take naps at coffee shops?
Not often.
I almost exclusively nap.
Because you're homeless.
That's
so
that's good.
I also want
have a
to
fancy car like Jim.
Trying to move up in the world.
My coffee shop's mobile. I publicly want to tell thank you to Keith Foster for having us.
Amazing.
Thank you. This place is beautiful. That looks like a fake background behind Josh and Scott. That is not. It's a real background.
So this is a good question. So Pepsi Cola is asking, have there been any major revelations?
Well, I mean,
I had a major revelation, and you know, specifically in that I came here thinking I was going to write one story, and then wrote an entirely different story. I feel way better about, you know,
for an anthology, right?
Yeah, for an anthology, you know, and this is something that Scott and I have talked about at least for the last couple weeks on Making Comics, and if you're going to go further than that, it's been an idea I've had for a story in this anthology for a year, maybe longer. So to get to that point and just do all this work, or at least do all this thinking and being like, I think this is how it's going to go. And then I just sat down to write it, really struggled, woke up again, woke up this morning, struggled some more. And then, like for me, the courage to just be like, I don't think this is working. I don't. And then feeling kind of refreshed. And it's like photos of me from 6 different angles.
Have you ever been an art model?
No.
Okay, so I was hungry as a freshman. So anyway,
Whoa, go on.
I was an art model.
Tell us
I can't wait.
So you go to
What were you hungry
You
for?
go to a figure drawing class.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, and you have 30 people draw you from 30 different angles in a circle, and then if you line them all up, you can kind of like run by.
Oh, it's like the Matrix.
You see yourself spin.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
You might have to take
How many clothes
Me
were
in
you
the
not
shot.
wearing?
I was wearing short shorts because it was
because that's what
Mormon
he
school.
does.
I did one bout of modeling for electron class.
Did you really?
It was extra credit.
So that was in.
It was just
that
him and the teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
You
was
should
in-
get a deal from me.
Yeah.
That was in 1998, and 2 years ago, I randomly went into a museum and I saw a sculpture of me at 18
Whoa.
from this guy that had taught that class that was retiring. And it was very weird. And I am way fatter than I was when I was 18.
The weird thing is you didn't know he was sculpting you.
That was the strangest thing.
I think
Yeah.
the big revelation I got was that Jim Lujan is a maniac driver. Absolute maniac
No,
driver.
that is a lie.
Driving with him on these mountain roads, it's like rolling down the side of the Grand Canyon in a shopping cart. It's unbelievable. There. That's
Gary, if you don't like the baby seat, I won't put you in it.
You know what is really cool though is watching Jim's process as far as the animation stuff goes, and what he had you guys listen to was us making noise in a certain direction that he gave us, and so he did that more than one time. And as we're doing it, I'm like, is this good? Like, is this going to be okay? And
Right.
he played it back for us once he went through his process and did his work, and it sounded amazing. I was
Yeah.
like, oh crap, like
Mhm.
that's us. And just the very simple directions he gave us, he applied it masterfully to his program and what he's doing.
It is fun to watch, especially the conducting.
Yeah.
The conducting of like, okay, now we're doing, and now like
Right.
quiet, and like now you're picturing, it's fun.
I'm like Kanye West.
Like you're
Not- not
undiagnosed.
the-
just
Yeah.
as humble.
Not without the music. No,
Certifiable.
all the other stuff. So, thank you, Scott. That was fun. You guys, the mood was right too. I mean, I knew I was going to record some background vocal type, noises, people for restaurants, and I have a scene in a bowling alley.
Yeah.
And especially there's one scene that takes place in a casino. It's a boxing match or an MMA match. And I had some background noise that I made myself and I got from the internet, and it just wasn't cutting it. And what we did today is so good. It fits so perfect. So thank you guys.
You make me think of this idea of like musically when you talk about breadth, right? And that's what you get. You get breadth, and with the idea that like you could be talented enough to play all the instruments yourself. But even things like simple bass lines or simple guitar lines, whether if you play them versus handing it off to someone else, they can play the exact same thing. But there are like microseconds of nuance that are different.
Yeah.
And those microseconds turn into breadth.
Right.
And that's how you get the feel of a band, of a lot of people
Yeah.
together. So it's like, I think to your point, you could have taken a lot of time to just record all these things. But, number one, you have a bunch of people in a space.
Right.
And number two, you just get that great breath because we all think different. So when you ask him to do, just random improv, whatever crowd noise, you're going to get something different from him, from all of us.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, you
Yeah.
feel it. You hear it when you get to the final.
So when you have these, for the viewers, if you're thinking of doing a retreat with other artists or whatever, I would say an important thing is read the room, know what types of things will and will not bother your other.
Which is pretty much, we found nothing.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Nothing is sacred.
And also we all read the room. We all
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
But that being said, Josh did bring his banjo,
Yeah.
and he has not played it nearly enough for us.
Or has he read the room and figured
I
this
read
ain't a
the
banjo?
room. I used it tactfully when people were taking a long time to get out for lunch. So I was
That's
like, okay, at this point, I'm playing banjo until everyone leaves.
Yes.
and that
I'm going to
worked.
get people the hell out of here.
I was waiting
want-
on Rainbow Connection. I'm excited it happened.
I vote for
Yeah.
more banjo because I think that,
Feed
Might
that,
have to happen tonight.
that banjo is pretty cool.
I think if
Oh.
we do the banjo, though, we should sit on the porch and creep out your neighbor.
We gotta go
I mean, they got their own thing
That was
going on,
fun
so
last night.
what's fair is fair.
Not sure they would notice.
What if we go into the woods and play the banjo?
Well, there's
Yeah.
bears.
There's bears.
Sure.
Bears like banjos?
There's your next book. Bears, banjos, Battlestar Galactica.
The 3Ds.
Yep. Sacred cheese. I think my breakthrough was so I'm working on a single issue, and so I had the first 4 pages laid out, and I had 3 out of the 4 drawn, and so I managed to finish the 4th page. But I had to scale out the rest of the issue because I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. So after doing that part of it, I have a better understanding of what's going on in the issue. And so I'm actually onto the writing stage of it. So it's just like, okay, well, now that I have that blocked out, I need to know how many pages it's actually going to take. So like, 4 pages to start on the intro, and then 5 for the next, and then 5 for the next, and then 2, and then 3. And then so I actually have to go through it page by page to make sure that is in fact the amount that I need. Do I need more? Do I need less? So it's a matter of managing the page count to the beats of the story. So that's where I'm at. But being able to finish that 4th page was really great. So it's just like, okay, cool.
I have a compliment too. Just full of compliments.
Let's make this a love fest. Come
Yes. One thing I was really impressed, and I had hoped it would be this way, but with your work ethics for each one of you, because you could have one of these events and people just take all their stuff to work on and never work on it.
Right.
They just like get distracted everyone here took their time and worked on their stuff, like really utilize the time, that and the heroin. You guys are so generous with the heroin, so thank you.
In some ways,
So many strong female leads.
Yes.
Well done.
Nice.
Did it sound different?
No, in some ways, I always had to push myself to create because I was just having fun hanging out and talking with people. Like, okay, yeah, I get to do that, but I also get to create. So having to break out the laptop.
When Josh mentioned the coffee coffee shop vibe, it's because like you can't see it, but this is on a glass table, big round glass table, and 4 of us had our computers here, and we're all, and I felt like I was at Starbucks. I looked over and there was a homeless guy sleeping in the corner. And I was like, this is exactly how it is at Starbucks. So
I'm sorry,
and
guys.
That's what you did again, Scott.
This is why
You're touching things.
I'm sorry.
Oh, the computer.
I'm like
Even the
typing
robot
stuff over here.
Yeah.
It's a remix.
Sorry, it's like,
sorry,
don't
Jake.
call me homeless. My bad.
So I have a question because I am so easily distracted. I
Yeah.
feel like the rest of you have such incredible focus.
see, he is
Is that right?
distracted. He's easily distracted.
I was playing on. That I can't switch gears like as fast as everybody seems like. Everybody's working and then they have a conversation and they're working again. And I'm like, I get into a zone and I like go somewhere else. And this morning it was really quiet, so I wrote for I don't know how long. And then I was like, there's like other people here. And I don't know. It was a weird thing.
Tell him how impressed you were, how early we got up.
Okay, I will say,
horrified. I
with
was
Gary
Without-
is complaining about
without
it.
too many details.
Well, I was just I don't know if I'd say complaining, but we went to bed at what 12:30.
Oh,
one. Well after 1.
6 in the morning. I'm hearing, like people up and around, and it's like, oh my god, what time is it?
I was
Like,
I was only up because I gave up eventually. But like everybody's like, well, I'm a really early riser, and as
5 hours sleep. How are you?
the
doing?
only designated driver in the group, I was impressed with the amount of extracurricular activity that happened the night before.
Yes.
As I was
Not like
sipping
that.
my water, and then I was expecting everybody to get up at 11.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted.
I set my alarm for 9:30.
That's when I think you were waking up, actually.
Yeah, that's when I would have
Scott won
gotten
the
up.
pool. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, they were snuggling. So why would you get up?
But
No.
yeah,
We were very
everybody
comfy.
got up really early.
So I had heard Gary gets up late. I heard legend had it that you always get up late.
Yeah,
I didn't
we
know
got
you- I thought
around
you
very
got up
quick
early.
at the cabin.
No,
because we were all like,
I
"Where's
am
Gary?"
Very much not an
It's like,
early person.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think by nature I'm a night person, but because I'm married and responsible, I've turned myself into a day person. I wake up very early.
So my wife and I have an agreement that we like shift. So I've got the night shift, she's got the morning shift. And so so she'll go to bed at 10 and get up and run 10 miles at like 5 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
Corey and I made a pledge tonight that we're going to stay up really late, like probably 11,
Yeah.
And then run 10 miles.
10:40,
And then
10:45.
I would like to sleep in after
The
that.
Bears and Coyotes.
No, but I don't know, and it's actually tiring though too, being creative, like for having so much time to be creative, and just like no limit on it. It's draining. It's tiring.
I hear you because
Yeah.
I think, for me, it's a fusion of that because it's tiring. but it's also because you have so much free time. You're like, what? Wow, it feels like I haven't done much today. And then you check your register, like, oh my God, I did so much, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just dedicated. You know, that's the thing. Like, there's
Yeah.
no, you know, like back, you know, when we all go back to our lives, you know, sure, I'll wake up some mornings and just work from my house. But then there's other times where I'm like, I'm going to Starbucks today. I'm writing.
Yeah.
Well, that's 15 minutes each way. And here it's like, it's zero.
Right.
It's just,
Yeah.
you can just shift immediately from thing to thing. So you end up just getting a lot of everything. You can hang out a lot. You can work a lot. You can be really productive, etc.
When I leave, I'm gonna say, and Scarecrow and Tin Man, I'm gonna miss all of you.
And especially
Okay, so I'm curious. Is
Especially you,
anybody?
Snoop.
Is everybody? Am I just the broken one, or is everybody else like? Are you struggling switching back and forth, or is anybody paying a task switching?
I'm actually really surprised with that Keith and Corey, because they're doing mostly writing while they're here, that they can focus with the
Yeah, that would be hard for me.
I don't
that's
think
going
I'd be able
on.
to write.
Yeah,
I don't think
that
I
was
could do
crazy.
that.
I'm saying I'm failing at that.
Well, that's like when you mentioned it, I had talked with Keith about it, like on the pod and off the pod, was the dynamics can be different because when we've done these creative retreats before, it's just me and him. So when I know he's deep into writing, I know to not talk because he's writing, he needs to concentrate, he needs to think. Like as an artist, I can, just like last night, like everyone's partying and having a great time, which I was too.
And you sure weren't. You were.
Oh, I was
straight and narrow.
I was on top of the moon. I was in a different atmosphere, but I was still working because I have the
non-human
ability.
physiology.
Yeah, I have the ability to do that. It's like I can, talk to you guys, have conversations, and still work.
Yeah.
Through every stage of
I'm
the
actually-
process, or is there like
No, not with writing because
not written,
that
but
was
like thumbnailing or
thumbnailing is different. No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do it through that because thumbnailing is the writing part of the art.
right.
Because you're essentially, you're interpreting these words. You have to interpret that into pictures, panels, like shapes and stuff like
'Cause
that.
I can
So
talk all day long inking and coloring.
Yeah.
But early
I can
on in the
pencil,
process,
like if I have
Yeah.
the thumbnail down,
Yeah.
then I can pencil and ink and talk and no problem.
Yeah, inking I could talk. Writing I.
There's no
for
way.
thumbnails and roughs, like because I've been doing live streams a lot with that, like it's not as hard for me to do
Yeah, I'm
thumbnails,
kind of
hearing people
amazed at
talking
what
and
Josh
stuff.
can do.
But I'm also
Josh
really
and
slow,
Scott, I've
so-
been impressed by both of them
Yeah.
because there's a lot of stuff going on, and Scott, he was enjoying beverages and things last night and still working at the
Yeah,
same time.
that was crazy.
and reminding us
Yeah.
how incredibly productive he
Yeah.
was.
He was,
Yeah.
and
That was
meanwhile,
crazy.
I know, like in comparison to him, I feel like I might be a little bit of a fussy creative, where conditions have to be just right.
No.
You just shut your mouth. But things sometimes have to be a little controlled for certain kinds. Like if I'm writing,
Yeah,
It's
you
kind
beat
of
me to my
like-
comment. Yes.
yeah, and that's where, like living with Mary, I'll like go and say like, hey, I'm gonna write for a while.
Mhm.
The code being like,
Leave me
you
alone.
know, don't bother me.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I
Yeah.
need to kind of go very, very focused.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do it in this.
Well, that's
sort
I
of-
was concerned with for Keith because that's his process is writing, and I was like, dude, I think at this stage in the game, everyone on the treat's going to be drawing. So I actually didn't know until we got to talk the other night that Corey's doing some writing as well,
Yeah.
and then I didn't realize that. Oh crap! I don't have this issue laid out as much as I thought I did, so I have to do
A
writing.
little
Yeah.
bit.
Right.
And then so it's just like, yeah, like, like you guys mentioned, it's almost a coffee shop vibe where there's so much going on around you. There's so many conversations, and it's just like,
It feels like
I
a
don't know.
studio
I
art.
can't do this right.
Nobody brought
But then
Like a
again-
studio art class in college where you're all kind of
Noise
sitting
canceling.
and chatting while you're doing your thing,
Yeah,
but you didn't bring
and
it
you're
up.
listening sometimes, not really participating.
The
Yeah.
one thing I can say, and a benefit to it, like that point in time where Jim specifically called it like a coffee shop, it felt like a coffee shop, like where at that point in the day, I probably could have written because it just felt like I was sitting at a coffee shop. Not
Yeah.
like it, you know what I mean? I wasn't like paying huge attention to anything in particular. It was just the ambience.
Yeah,
That I can get into, but it is really hard.
These. Nobody brought these.
I
did.
Did you have
I
noise
did.
canceling?
I
I
never-
have noise
But
canceling.
you never
earbuds if I
wore
need
them though. I never saw
I-
you.
Okay, so
That's
this
what I-
gets into why it wasn't that bad for me. So Corey, yes, to answer your question, there was a part, much like Scott, where like what I didn't expect, what I did expect.
What you didn't expect was getting a fist fight over the length of your story.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. This one really belligerent guy last night. No, well, so what I expected was that I was going to be able to do pre-work and I would write the comics.
Yeah.
So writing comics is not as laser focused for me as writing novels. So
because you're describing the visuals, or
I think, I mean, I suppose it's even the stage of where I am. If I am first drafting a novel, then I absolutely need like jazz, all that stuff, right? If I'm second drafting a novel, I mean, I'm editing, right? So that's not as much. So the thing was, this story, you could call it a second draft because the original thing that I was planning on doing was an adaptation of prose that I had written a long time ago. So that's not narrow focus kind of work for me. But the thing that I didn't expect was I was going to wad it up in a paper ball and then be like, let me do something new. So yes, this morning, when I did have a little period where I was like, okay, I'm struggling a little bit, but I don't know. I just kept punching, for me, I can't say that I'd turn this into like a strategy, but I just asked myself, what interests me? What interests me right now? And then I actually, when I get in struggle times like that, where like I'm having a hard time focusing because I sort of misestimated anything, I was like, write it down, force it. What things interest me right now? And I was like, these 5 things. I'm like, can 2 of those make a story? I'm like, those 2, right? Can I add this thing? So I like, that's sort of, I do like a Q&A with myself. And then I get through it. And then before you know it, I had the bones and I mean, I'm done. The comic script is done. And so it's kind of fun because I went from 0 to basically completed comic script, or at least 95% done in 8 hours, for 8-page story, but still it's fun to see the fact that I can work that fast if I need to,
So
yes.
I walked over to the kitchen today and I saw what Keith was writing. Just over and over, he kept writing all fun and no play, and it's jacket. No, I saw the amount.
It's a great story, 10,000 words.
I saw the amount that you wrote, and I just like, Jesus, Keith wrote this in the midst of us just speaking nonsense. Even though we're all working, like I was doing some animation, Josh was drawing, Scott was drawing, so we were jabbing and laughing, and then you were over there writing, and I was just like, that's nuts. Like, I can't believe you did that with all the distractions. You were able to focus. And Corey too. Corey kept typing.
Yeah, it's kind of like the riding corner back there.
Yeah,
it was. That's true. We are.
This is like
we are a little physically separated, and sometimes those few feet can help. Right.
I did have earbuds in for a bit.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
I just thought you had a hearing problem. Sorry. Sorry, I made
Corey, I'm
fun.
talking.
I forgot to mention this too. This is a huge deal. Like one of the most beautiful things the first day we were here was like a couple of us cracked some jokes, a couple of them very inappropriate jokes, and everyone was into them. And the beauty of that is when you're with a group of people that share a sense of humor, it's huge
relief.
Yeah. And so I think that also helps. Like if you know people who have a similar sense of humor, or like are just similar interests and stuff like that, it's going to go over a lot better.
Yeah, you could just be yourself.
Yeah, whereas if
kind of pretend.
Yeah, like if we showed up and everybody was like, like behaving like they were at church or something, like I think that would be a little hard to hang out for a whole week.
It's disingenuous.
Yeah.
How do you know?
There's also different versions of yourself in different situations.
Right.
It's like actually
And one of the things that's really interesting here is that
Funny you mentioned.
because everybody is an active creator, not a wannabe creator, but in the process of actually creating. I don't think anybody was uncomfortable like being vulnerable with their thing. So I'm struggling to kind of crack the story, and literally just like whoever is sitting next to me, I'm like, okay, so this, like we're in the car,
this is what's happening. Yeah, we'll be driving.
There's like a lull in the conversation. I'm like, what do you think would happen in this situation? In this, or could I do this?
If a guy is like this and he's trying to pass himself off like this,
Yeah.
how do you think that would? Yeah.
It's Jim Lujan.
I was impressed. Corey's story is nuts. For one, it's so hard. Like, Corey, is this coming from your mind, or are you channeling this? But then for you to just relay it to these new two here,
Yeah.
and they just picked
It was
up
fun.
on it like that.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
Real fun
okay.
story.
Yeah,
This is
I was
one-
listening when he was
Way
talking.
more about them than me, but yeah.
No, I
Well,
think,
and like to Corey's point, like
Yeah.
my unnamed harsh critic apologized
I
the next morning, right? But then
Was there a harsh critic?
Was that you or was that John? That's a Josh.
I don't know if anyone would be hard.
rewind it and see where I'm pointing. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
It was weird because
Incredible host,
Josh was
like,
pounding
who
the
would dare?
table too when he's making his points. He was
Yes.
and this shall not.
So much
started
profanity, Jim.
speaking German. Just started speaking German out of
I
nowhere.
just pulled the staff
That was weird.
out. Yeah,
That was
like
odd.
you shall not.
But I mean, that was a quick follow up conversation because he's like, "Oh, I think I was, a little too harsh." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I asked, and
Yeah.
I can
But
take
al-
criticism."
But also, I think this is mature creatives.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Is you can have heated creative discussion.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like Josh walked up and said, "Let me tell you what's wrong with your story."
Right.
It was like, "Hey, we're all sitting down, like,
Yeah.
and you opened this up."
Absolutely.
And it
we're all
wasn't-
slow
it wasn't
adults.
just Josh, like
Yeah.
we all got a little bit heated, kind of like on specific points and
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
At no point do I feel like anybody got their feelings hurt
Yeah.
or whatever.
It didn't boil over.
No,
I
no,
think.
no.
Well, they were
and
cheers.
even during like the harsh feedback, like he was saying, like I remember he was looking at me, he was like, "Am I wrong?" And I was like,
Right.
"I don't really agree," and it was like,
Yeah.
like I,
Yes.
If I say
yeah,
no,
I
are you
mean,
gonna hit me?
whatever, like I mean, no, it was energetic
Yeah,
debate
yeah.
over
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
was
creative.
it was also theory based.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
wasn't like
Yes.
anybody was like, "I don't like how you did
Yeah.
this."
Yeah.
Wow,
It
you
was
suck.
like it was actually one of the more
It was
interesting
kind of
discussions I've been in. It was a heated discussion
Yeah.
about story structure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
even your specific story.
Yeah, no, you're
but
right.
that was the
Yeah.
that was the catalyst for the
Right,
discussion.
You're right.
I like being around really passionate people who are willing to have a 20-minute argument about story structure. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that was
You
Yeah,
should- you
only
should-
at an art retreat.
You
Only
still
at an
shouldn't
art
have sprayed him with mace.
Yeah, that's true.
That was a little over. Or
Yeah,
bear
the bear
spray.
spray.
Just the
What
bear-
he's not,
yeah.
what he's
I-
not mentioning is that the bear spray was like under the table ready.
Blasting the air horn in his ear was wrong the ninth time. First aid was probably.
You can only spray
I
them
don't know
with
why
mace,
he's
not
saying
there's no access to people.
Did you notice
Just
that
mace.
creatively nobody stepped on anybody else's toes either?
Yeah.
Like we all, it wasn't like we were staying away from each other's projects,
Yeah.
but it was nobody's like, Scott, what you should do is here, give me that.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where if someone invites you in
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
on it, like Corey was like, I'm trying to figure this out. And so we had a nice conversation,
Yeah.
Like a
same
vampire.
with you guys last
Yeah,
night.
Well,
Yeah.
when
Well,
you were
that's-
showing
yeah.
me that page, and I was like, you can immediately disregard this.
Yeah.
But if I was cropping this and I was like doing
Right,
that,
yeah.
like, I would cut it like this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm walking away. You can ignore me. Like
Well, and
it's
that's
how I-
like the beauty of our friendship and like our working relationship. It's like it's we know that there's no ill intent. It's
Right.
just like
Yeah.
it's like the Jeet Kune Do thing. Like it's
Yeah.
just like take what's useful, disregard what's useless,
Yeah.
right? And so
And-
it's like, is this useful to you? If not, no big deal. If it is, cool. I'm glad I helped.
Yeah.
And we're all effective creators, I think, and therefore we're very aware that there's a level of subjectivity to all of this
Yeah.
feedback.
Yeah. For
Of
sure.
course.
We're not saying like this is how you should do it. It's like this is how I would do it.
Yeah.
This is one way.
Again,
that
only-
kind of like
Only
approach.
when asked.
Yeah.
You know.
When asked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
when
not
asked,
looking over
yeah.
someone's shoulder and like, why are you doing it like that?
Although to be fair, this whole retreat, Jim has been like, "That is not the Luhan way," and
Yeah.
he'll like hit us, but
Thank you.
that's not.
But
you
it's
know.
true
The
because
rolled up newspaper is a little much.
you know, I would just walk by your projects and go. Did you say something, Jim? No.
Can
no,
you
no.
print that out?
Jim's
I need
like,
to go to the
you know,
bathroom.
before I was on Animation Plus,
Right,
I would have had this discussion with you.
Yeah.
No, I would say, well, that's cute.
but-
I used to do it that way too.
That looks like you're trying so hard.
You know, when you
Good work ethic.
I remember my first comic.
Yeah, yeah.
I like
You
how you
should do
drew
that.
the smile on that face.
you know, when you do your real version of this.
Well, it's interesting. Scott lost, since no one on
Yeah.
there can see what I'm pointing at. Who I'm pointing at. You were doing that with me, so I was like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. Or actually, you asked because I was kind of staring off into space, and you're like, so tell me about it. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you can help me. So we talked about it, and you gave very good advice that I'm actively choosing not to not to follow because that's not what this project is.
Yeah, after
absolutely.
you told
Right,
me,
right.
after you told me more about the project,
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, so that's different.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Gary has said
Yeah.
something similar, I think, about the notes I gave you maybe a comic issue ago, right? Like I liked the feedback because even the stuff I disagree with
Yes.
makes me think more about my own choices.
Yeah.
Yes.
And by evaluating them, often come out going like, I feel even stronger about
No,
you saying this thing that I was like, no.
Yeah.
I don't quite agree with that. It helped you form an
I
opinion,
like,
right?
and it's a funny balance to strike because it can come off as defensive.
Yeah.
I like justifying my creative choices. So that's why sometimes I do like some critical feedback where it's
Yeah.
like, I understand what you're saying. This is why I did that.
This is what I was
yeah,
thinking.
and
Yeah,
like,
right.
and that might not change your mind. And that's not me saying like, shut up, I'm right.
Yeah.
It's just explaining like this
No.
is there's actually
It's
an
different.
intent
It's,
here.
it's like
Yeah.
there's, it's like we're not in a classroom. We're not your teachers. You're not our
Right.
student,
Yeah.
or vice versa.
right.
It's just like, oh, you're letting us know why you made that decision. That's important.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I can tell you why it worked. That does work, in fact, based off what you said, or
Yeah.
it doesn't because X amount of information is missing. Okay,
Right.
okay, now I understand what you're going for, but
Right.
Yeah, and another thing I think is valuable, like tying this into like just the way the mind works and like education and stuff. It's like if you're working on your master's, you have to defend your thesis.
Right.
It's part of the thing because you're not a bachelor's student, right? So you're not like as an undergrad, you're supposed to be like a sponge and just
Right.
so. But at this point, you're supposed to be able to justify your choices,
Right.
and
Defend yourself.
you have to defend yourself against people who are going to attack your position.
Right.
And they're going to attack your paper.
And they
they're
don't
gonna
even
attack your
necessarily
art.
disagree. They just want to see how you
They
like.
want
what-
you to justify.
Yeah,
it.
like I'm gonna poke you on
That's
this.
the beauty of critique.
justify why
Yeah.
you did that. Yeah.
Because you should never
Yeah.
really do something that you're not willing to defend.
Yes.
I like this idea. I like this idea of defend or disown. Like
Yeah.
in my classroom, like at any point in time, if I'm giving critique, I give my students permission to say, like, I just kind of phone this one in. We can move on. It's fine. You
Yeah.
know, whatever. Or like, okay, let's like engage. Like, you either defend what you did,
Yeah.
or you admit, like, yeah, this isn't whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even stuff like, I'm just going back to the conversation with Scott. Like, it was very validating because I agreed with everything he was saying. So I'm writing a story live. I'm releasing a chapter at a time. I'm serializing it like they did back in the olden days where they got paid
Yeah.
for the word. And I have no idea where it's going. And your advice was exactly what you would normally do in most situations, which is you don't start writing until you know what the story is.
Yeah.
And I'm
It's
like,
like, if
I'm like
you can
that's
have
why
the-
I'm struggling right now.
right,
Because I'm
like
doing
like
this.
for
And-
story based, like you kind of want, like just me personally, and I don't know, I'm not like a trained writer or anything, but if I know where the story starts and I know where the story ends, and I know my characters well enough, I know how they're going to get there.
Yeah,
They're going to take a
right,
whole bunch of twists and turns and journeys because they are who they are as character, as people. And you can figure that out as long as you know where the road is. It's like,
Yeah.
this is the home base. You got to get to home base. These are your touch points and whatever. But hearing that it's like, no, this is a weekly thing, or how often do you drop it?
just as I get it out.
Oh, okay.
It's usually
It's almost weekly.
once a
Almost
week.
weekly.
Once a week.
Almost
So
a
yeah,
week, yeah.
if you're doing it once a week, but like, hey, it's under this strict structure, then that changes everything. It's just like, no, it's based on this exercise that I'm doing, or this process that is different from anything I've ever done before.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, okay. Well, then
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
no,
that's
it
my
was-
advice, but
yeah.
it
No,
changes
it was
everything.
really, it was
Yeah.
really helpful because it like articulated why I'm struggling is because I've set up these weird experimental restraints.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh,
Which I think we
that-
talked about
Yeah.
that last night a little bit too,
Yeah.
right? That again, the conventional story thing is, well, you just go back and delete everything you didn't
Right.
like, except
Right.
you've poured the concrete
Exactly.
on every chapter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So again, it's unique.
I also
I-
think it's
real
the
quick,
complication of your plot. It is like every time you describe what you're going to write, and you
It takes
tend to
20
describe it as
minutes.
if you're struggling with it, and then by the time you release it, I don't know how you make it work, but you do. But it's crazy, like what your
There's a
plot
lot
is.
involved. Yeah.
It's a lot.
And so your ability to do that is really fascinating, and to see you pushing through those struggles to like tell a really complicated story is pretty
Dylan's
impressive.
asking how the baby punchy's going. I will say coming up soon, there's going to be a micro chapter about a new occupation of people who have to slap babies in the NICU so that they don't die. So if you haven't caught up on the story yet, you should go do that because that's a thing.
Jim, you're a baby.
Corey told us about some of the developments in his story this weekend, and we locked him in the basement.
Corey's whole story is just to justify him wanting to slap babies.
Yeah. Why it's not always bad to slap a baby.
This I'll tell you what this is, and then we can get off my story and go back to the thing. But it's one of my favorite intellectual exercises to do. Is like, in this situation, how would this person react? How would this person react? How would it affect this industry? What would happen over here? It's like those games that you used to play as kids, where it's so like, I broke the laws of physics. What's that going to do to the FBI? What's going to do to the
God, we
president?
played
What's
way
gonna-
different games as kids.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play that game.
You didn't break the laws of physics?
Monopoly, heard of it?
No, I played Legend of Zelda.
Which is also good.
You know what I like seeing so far over the weekend was Scott Circlin's stuff. He has a project that he's working on, and he's told us about it, like a little bit about it.
Yeah, I've mentioned it. We can talk about
Oh,
it.
okay, yeah. So seeing some of the character designs you were doing, I was
Well,
it's
and
pretty badass.
So I'll just go because this is I don't know if I had any big revelation moments, but Josh gave a really cool just sometimes these little things are just like, oh, that's a cool idea. So in my story, in this new story I'm working on, it's kind of a hip hop mech kaiju battle themed story. And so I'm designing this giant mech, and he's got speakers on him and everything like that. And Josh is like, what if he shot like LPs, like record albums out? And I'm like, and I'm just picturing that. I'm picturing a visual of a vinyl record slicing into
that's
the
what I
head
was
of like a
thinking too,
kaiju. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So that's going to be in the story now. But just stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that comes out of when you got people around, because I don't know that I would have thought of that.
Yeah, I think it would be cool too if like the speakers emitted like a certain frequency.
Yeah, that's that. We'll get that
is
much
that
into
something?
it, 'cause that-
Sorry,
there
my
may be
bad.
something
Like,
there that I'm
What
thinking
if it was
about.
like
Yeah.
a frequency that like took you to a different? No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. I didn't know if that's something in your story. I'm like, I just thought of that.
The
when
story
you-
is very rough, so
Okay.
I can't really say what's going to happen, but that is one idea that I have.
It is really.
And by the time I get around to finishing it, people will probably forget all about this anyway. So, but yeah, I had an idea that would have some kind of effect on the creatures and stuff.
And there's also some Young in the Dead that he's been working on.
So right now, and I don't think I'll change it because I kind of like the title, but it's called Hippopotamus Rhyme.
Yes.
And it's basically a world where, imagine, this is an alternate reality, but in the 60s, there was like Godzilla, or different kind, not Godzilla, but kaijus came out to attack this city, which is similar to New York, and left it devastated. And after that, it's pretty much uninhabitable except for, everyone that's left behind, which are the low-income people and everything. And then there's just all kinds of ruins, and they've decommissioned all these giant robots because if they do come back, they've got AI and they've got better technology, but all that stuff is illegal. So the heroes in the story, basically they build these giant mechs to have rap battles with, and they rig them up with speakers and everything like that. And then eventually, of course, the kaijus come back and they take out the AI, and then so the only one really that can fight them are these hip hop kids with these giant robots, and so that's kind of the
So you're
story.
saying the only people that survive are the ones that don't use AI?
Not necessarily, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's ironic.
You
He's,
guys
he's,
remember that.
he's doing the entire story in AI,
Yeah.
which is really
It's been just writing prompts all day long.
That's a cool story.
Scott forgot to mention this about the virus in the story, that the fake vaccine and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
okay.
But that's what we'll go over. He's got a whole thing, a whole manifesto. I'll do that later.
I saw a little bit of Young and the Dead being
Yeah,
done
so
as well.
I've been working on a
That's
few
pretty
things.
exciting.
Yeah, so I've got to finish up the cover. I mean, Young and the Dead is pretty much finished, the interiors, but I'm working on some sketches for the covers. So I did that. Also, a big thing that we did. Corey today helped me with some stuff with my newsletter, which is always good when you have somebody who's a little more knowledgeable about something that instead of trying to explain it over streaming or something like that, can just sit there on my laptop and like, okay, let's do this, and then we did some tests with Gary, subscribed in my newsletter, and we realized, oh, there's some major things I got to change because I'm losing people because people are just going past that. So let's
do an experiment now.
Yeah.
Go to CoreyKerr.com/email and sign up and see if that works. And then go to circworks.com/email and sign up for that one and see if that one works.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't work. It's just we realize that a lot of people are on mobile.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see.
Most of us here, I think, at least a lot of us here, myself, do a lot of stuff on desktop.
Yeah.
And it's easier to see on desktop where, you really have to take, because most people are going to be doing this stuff on mobile, which was my big mistake. And I get a decent, but what's encouraging is that I get a decent amount of people subscribing to the newsletter, but I'm thinking if I make these changes,
And make it
this is going to be all the better.
Yeah. It's good fun.
What's been your highlight? I want us to low light because I know it's only. But what's been the highlight of the weekend for each one of you? Go, Scott Lost first.
Counting the number of CPAP machines.
Well,
Just kidding.
I would say seeing the condition Jim was in yesterday.
He means
As-
physical.
As
Physical condition.
hard as I was partying, Jim partied to a
Jim
completely
showed
other
us how it
level,
was.
and he was comatose.
Yeah.
So
No, he wasn't comatose. So like I said, at one point in the evening, I turned around and saw him sitting in the chair in the corner, looking like the clown in Poltergeist. He just had this crazy grin, and I got eye contact with him, and he just did this.
Does anyone believe this?
Yeah.
Come on.
It's 100%.
and he mumbled
Fake
at one
news.
point, "I'm sorry, I'm not here tonight." So that was my
a
highlight.
little creepy.
And I was levitating.
Yeah.
Josh, what was yours?
It's been just every time we've had get-togethers, I enjoy it, and it's fun to kind of fill out the team. Like I've been wanting to meet Gary for a long time.
In person.
Yeah, it's been fun to
Is this
meet
This is the first time.
Keith
Oh,
and
wow.
Scott
I
for
didn't
the
know
first
that.
time in person. So that's been. I always find that cool because again, it just reiterates why I like these people, and it's just always fun when you meet people and you're like, oh, okay, I have met you. Now we're hanging out, but it's it's just
It's
I
the
get such a
same.
kick out of
It's
it.
like the same as online, but
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's just like, oh, all the things I like about you, they're better in person.
Yeah.
And so that's always cool. How about you, Keith?
Yeah, casting aside the whole just retreats in general are cool. I've never had a bad experience. They're all amazing. I mean, for me, it's hard to beat the fact that here we are, the final night of the retreat. We're still with time left, and no, those are coyotes.
So if you can't hear this,
Are those
on the,
really
if you can't
coyotes?
hear
Oh, yeah,
this
a
on
ton
the
of them.
stream,
Oh, they
Is that
are.
really
Yes,
coyotes?
really.
Oh, I thought it was the
Okay.
neighbors messing
I was
around.
like, what is
Those are
that
coyotes.
sound?
you know
I
that
thought it was revelers.
Because I have coyotes and
No, you
I see
know the
coyotes all the
scene
time.
in-
in my
Oh yeah,
neighborhood,
that's
but I don't
a
hear
good,
that.
that's a
Disney
deep pack of
Yeah,
coyotes.
yeah. That's
So what you guys aren't hearing, there is a lot of howling in
Just
the
this-
background.
Like this.
So what? I'll tell you exactly what's going on. 101 Dalmatians. It's
Oh,
when
yeah.
they're like,
Yeah,
sending the
when they're
bark
sending the
along.
signals.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was anyway. Sorry.
But
You
yeah,
had a-
but
you had a
creatively,
chorus.
it's hard for me to beat, having I have the 8-page comic script. So I thought I'd have that, but I didn't think it would be something that I did brand new entirely. And that I'm even more energized about because I just stayed in my lane of what am I really interested in right now?
Yes,
right.
good.
So I think it'll not only be a fun thing to do, but it'll be a cool document in time. I will always, think back to just creating this today. Right. So yes, my creative highlight.
Yeah, for me, it's weird. It's the whole thing. When I came in here, I used to when we before a long time ago, if we were planning something like this, I would get kind of nervous. Oh, I gotta set this up. I gotta make sure. But somewhere along the line, and I think it's because I went through this transformational leadership program. But it's just you get to create what's going to happen, and just letting things happen, and just coming here and just having everything be perfect. I'm sitting here talking with my favorite people, bouncing ideas off each other in this really cool space. And I go in to check my email and I'm getting new patrons signing up, and it's just like everything's like just happened. It's just super
Everything's
cool.
coming up, Milhouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's
Yeah.
coming
So,
up.
I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's a little bit. Actually, my answer is a little similar. I think coming into it, I experienced some level of social anxiety, just generally, and big group together in one place for a couple nights. People meeting each other for the first time. It's like, oh, I hope it goes well. I hope it's not weird. I hope.
Especially since you kind of
Because it's all your fault.
Well, yeah, especially since I kind of was like, let's do this. It'll be great. And it's like, boy, I hope it goes great. And
There's still a night for it to go terribly.
just imagining all the ways, like, oh, I hope everyone has fun. I hope everyone feeling some responsibility for that, even though I don't have any responsibility for that.
No, you're wrong.
Some.
You do.
Maybe I do.
Take responsibility.
Actually,
Really,
like how I hope I speak for everyone. I hope I don't jinx it because there is a day left.
That's true.
How kind of effortless and easy
Yeah.
and fun it's
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
Like it's been very chill. It's been very do whatever you're doing and make your own little schedule and bounce off each
Yeah.
other time to time and let's go get dinner and it's been great. It's
Like
worked-
going back
it's
to
been easy.
going back to something Jim said earlier was like, if this is the first time you've done something like this, you're kind of not exactly prepared to have as much time to create than you have previously. Like it's really different. It's really, like seriously, if you have, even if you're working from home constantly, so you always have time to work on your own personal projects, there's always something that comes up.
There's always
But-
life.
But
Yeah.
there's life always in the way, right? Trying to derail you from
Yeah.
the creative process. But here, that's not an obstacle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
And
really
so-
check my phone or it's like I checked it once with my girlfriend. That was it. And
Yeah.
and it's just like, but
Mhm.
it's been pretty secluded. Just that's
Yeah.
really
It's
cool.
just something you
there's
need
that
to adjust to.
accountability of everyone else is working.
Yeah.
So like you said, you don't want to be sitting there on your Switch.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you're just like, well, I should do something.
Yeah. And it's just adjusting to that, like, because you're kind of used to fitting the time in sometimes to get your projects done.
Mhm.
And when you have this much time, you're like, oh crap, I've been working on this for like 2.5 hours. That's usually what I get per day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
possibly. Right.
Yeah.
And then so, like some of the guys, they're like, I'm tired. I don't want to rest though, because like I want to keep working.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's okay. You can take a nap
Yeah.
because you don't have to pick your kids up from school. You don't have to pick
Yeah.
up
Josh
your
did
dogs.
that. Josh at one point was like, I think it's time.
That's
for
who
a
I
nap."
was
He went to
talking
2 minutes
about.
today.
I was trying to be general.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah.
but 5 minutes later, he came back. It's like, I'm good.
Yeah,
Dude,
it was-
I
it
took
was
a
weird.
nap.
It was
I took
one
an
of
hour
those,
long
yeah.
nap.
Shoot, last night I took a nap while I was awake.
So did I, but I was also still drawing at the same time.
How about you, Corey?
So my not serious answer is that moment when you see people and one of you isn't sure if you're gonna hug or not. So you just kind of like
That was when I met you.
Oh yeah.
I was like,
Stand
I feel like I should hug
Or we,
you.
Hey.
I was like, okay,
the
right.
half hug, half handshake.
Yeah.
We can hug. I mean,
Now we can. Yeah.
no,
We
my-
spent some time.
yeah, no, I would say so far, like the little conversations. Like I had a really interesting conversation with Gary, where I was shoving a bunch of ideas down his throat about like marketing stuff that I think he should do because I want to own some of his original art. But like that, and then like I sat next to Josh earlier during dinner, and Josh and I completely different wavelengths in a lot of ways, but also like very in sync in a lot of things, and very similar backgrounds professionally. And so it was just a really good conversation. We kind of like worked through anyway. So it's been like those types of like the one-on-ones and been very helpful to like both Keith and Scott Lost to like have a totally new, fresh set of eyes or ears on this story. Because I've been talking to everybody else about it for I don't know how long I've been working on it, but a few months.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, I get to explain this to people who have no idea what it is, and then there's things that I didn't think about necessarily. So it's those little conversations.
Yeah.
For me, those are highlights.
Love it.
This is the closest I've been to what a bullpen would be.
Oh
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
Except we're not working on one thing, but
You don't got
I don't think
Stanley
there are
on there.
bullpens either, though.
Yeah.
Everyone's working on different stuff in bullpen.
but they have a common book sometimes. That they're working
Sometimes, yeah.
on. Yeah, like an
Anyway,
inker
yeah.
or whatever.
Right.
But the highlight for me was probably today when I was working on something sitting right here, and I looked over and Scott's working on his thing, and Josh and everybody was like had their heads down and were working on stuff. And I just thought, oh, this is really cool. Like this is really self-motivated people, because this is the opportunity that you're given as much time as you want, as much you can sit anywhere in the house you want, work on your stuff or not.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody was like, hey guys, I'm gonna go do the yo-yo outside for a couple hours.
I'm gonna take a walk.
Well,
Yeah.
But everybody just had their heads down and were working on stuff, and I thought that was really cool.
I've got a buddy who is, as we speak, at the Worldwide Yo-Yo Championship
Really,
as a
That's a
competitor.
question.
the Olympics.
Yeah.
So random.
Do you have a? I think it's a good one.
What's the question?
So has everyone's current project slightly changed due to this get together?
No
Keith's
keys.
Mine is completely new.
Yeah.
Again,
Wrapped
I
in silver.
completely new. This is a 8-page comic script that when I woke up this morning, I did not know would exist. Right. So I've never had anything like that happen.
Yeah.
So no, it's
And that's
great.
and that's
Completely
when I
different.
think the projects are gonna work. You know what I mean? Like this is gonna be a really good short story, I think. Like when you can kind of piece something together as fast as you did,
Mhm.
and instantly just talking to you, like you sounded different compared to the other story when you're
Mhm.
working on it.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this is a bit of a slog for him, and he's trying to figure it out, and he's not figuring it out. And it's just like, no, we got a little brain trust going on last night. That didn't work.
Mhm.
You woke up still feeling like it's not going to work. And then in a matter of like 2 hours, you had a completely different story. And you're like, well, because of this, and this reason.
Mhm.
And that's a great thing. If something come together that quickly, it's more than likely going to work.
Yeah.
How about anybody else? I mean, I'm the most obvious answer. Anyone?
For me, it's. I mean, I don't know if anything's. I mean, I'm transitioning from one project to another, so that's a big thing. So anything that I
We
came
support
here
it.
the first day. I worked on Young and the Dead. Second day, I worked on my new project. So there's kind of like a big difference there, and just getting the feedback on that project and getting some ideas. And it's still got. I mean, it's just in its infancy, so there's different ways to go. But it is kind of cool to just transition from working with a project that I've been working on for over 10 years to something brand new. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And not knowing where to go, because if you're starting off not knowing where to go and have people to kind of contribute to that, I think is a big thing.
I think there's also something, and this sounds hokey or whatever, but there's something about like a vibe.
Yeah.
Like when you see other people that are on a roll, it kind of pushes you to get on a roll
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And then I woke up this morning, and the first thing I wanted to create this morning.
Yeah.
So
I feel the same way. It's funny. Like that's kind of how I feel right now.
Yeah.
It's like I have this thing that I'm happy with under my belt, and we still have more time.
Yes.
Right.
So now I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, I feel like now I'm kind of in the bonus
Now we're
time, but it's a
cooking, yeah.
very exciting kind of bonus.
Yeah.
It's not a kick your feet back bonus. It's like, what more can I do? I want to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
more.
yeah.
I want to harness this into something else, whatever it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
So the energy is definitely still there.
yeah, watching you guys focus was really cool too. Like especially you, Keith, when you did a U-turn, just like started this other thing,
Mhm.
and it wasn't out of like a desperation move. It looked like it was out of a inspiration move.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like a politician. It wasn't out of desperation.
that is
It was
very-
out of inspiration
Inspiration in the
and
nation.
dedication.
Good job.
Is
Brendan.
his
Well,
medication.
that's
across
a
the
medication
nation.
at the station.
That's
Of the
interesting thing
constipation,
about-
of the masturbation. Can I get an amen? All right. My story is the same, but what I did like was, oh, my time is up. I'm
See, it
sorry.
happens.
Okay, that's our episode.
Yeah.
That's it.
What I liked was getting instant feedback. So like, I'm in the process of skeleting out the book, and it was kind of like I just turned to Gary and Keith and said blah blah blah, and they're like, that's fine. Those are the proper beats. Everything is good. And I'm like, okay, I thought so. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's just like the feedback that I got initially compared to the feedback I got from you in person. And it was like, we've had these conversations, like we have group chats that we do, and we're relatively quick at responding, but it's nice to just have a conversation and just have it go back and forth. And, you can go, well, and it's like, okay, like, let me listen to what you got to say, because you're people that I trust as far as like story beats and all of those things. It's like, you guys are really good creators, really great creators, and the best creators, one would say. Yeah. So,
No, don't stop.
okay.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So anyway, it's great to have that instant feedback and go, okay, cool. All right. Because I thought I was in the right place. I thought I was going in the right direction. Then I got information that didn't seem the case. And it's just like, no, you were. And it's like, okay, cool. I got,
Well, to your point, like sitting alone creating, that's the kind of thing that can just work your brain for an hour a day, 3 days.
Yeah.
The ability to just, nope, I'm good. I was good.
So I actually have a question. I'm sure some of the viewers might be wondering this. When we came in, each of you, when you came into this environment, where were you at, like mentally with your projects? Like, oh man, I need to get this stuff done, or I don't know where I'm going to go, or whatever. Like for me, I'm coming down the slope towards the end of my project.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I gotta keep the momentum going. I can't slack off.
Well, just staying on mine, since I was just talking about it, was since I had the first 4 pages planned out already, I was like, okay, these are, tight. But then like a day before we came up the mountain, I was like, oh shoot, I don't have any of the rest of the story planned out. So I was at the beginning of the process, essentially. It's like, I have 3.5 pages, or I have 3 pages in one panel done, but that was it. I had the intro and that was it. So it was a matter of kind of filling that project out and getting it where it needed to be.
Here?
I did that here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So
I'm really glad I could inspire you to do
You
that.
did. It was all due to Jim Lewis.
I was just like, what should I have this character do? And then I turned and you were comatose.
So it's a story
That's a
about
way
a
to
guy
go.
leaning against the log asleep.
Yeah.
How about you, Josh?
So I am at an interesting point of being at like a little over halfway in a 230-page graphic novel. And so I'm at a point where it's just like I'm in the middle, a little bit past the middle of the ocean and treading water, and it's very easy to like lose sight of that.
You're too far from land. You can't go back.
Yeah, it's a little easy to lose sight of land in general. And so what I think was important that this helped with is being surrounded by people who are achieving goals in art and are doing creator-owned projects and are still showing up dedicated, like,
Josh,
seeing the full fungus come together, seeing Gary starting a new project. I even joked with him that we are clearly mentally ill to start another project like that. But it's like, I think it's inspiring to see. That was really fun too. That was a fun experience of like helping someone with photo reference, because I take a ton of photo reference. So it was nice to be able to kind of return the favor, at least to the universe for that, because I've had to do that with so many people. Yeah.
So I hope you get the feedback. You got the feedback from us this weekend. Genuinely, I told you this. Genuinely, I think what you're working on is the best thing you've ever done. Like, and absolutely, hands down, I think it's the best thing. And I hope it's like a shot in the arm for you to, because like you said, you are way out to sea. You're working on this.
No, it's so inspiring and it's fun, and it's also a good reminder that this thing we do is fun.
Yeah, and you always hope your latest project is your best project, right?
So.
Like that's always the hope. It's like, okay, please let me be getting better with each thing I do, as opposed to kind of being stagnant, or like, man, that actually was really great, and then the one after it wasn't so much. Like that's like the worst feeling you could have.
You don't want to be Weezer after Matt Sharp.
I know you're on a big mountain, but just know that like when you're done with this, you're going to look back and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be an epic. Yeah, it is. It's really, really strong what you're working on.
Yeah, I was looking at the pages you were showing me earlier, and I was like, whoa, this is really nice stuff. Like real detailed. There's a lot going on in each panel. So, Josh is putting in the work, like putting that mileage in. So, it's some nice looking stuff.
So you mentioned you're going to start over.
So from this, I'm just basically scrapping the project to start.
That's why we're here, to scrap projects. Testify.
Yeah, let's establish it and then just throw it all in the trash.
How many times on the first day did we joke that this was an intervention for somebody else?
Oh
It's a recurring. It's like.
The only real one was for Jim. So Jim, now that we have you on
camera, and
we've also brought the internet with us.
I need to go to sleep.
Okay, that's what he calls cocaine.
Oh yeah. If I had a problem, why would my horse say it?
Well, we're at close to an hour and a half, and got a lot of plugs to do. So
And a lot of work to do tonight.
Yes.
Not even
We're not
kidding.
done.
Jim,
Yeah.
Jim and I are going the distance tonight.
Is that your guys'
Darn
tag
right.
name?
Wait, I don't like when you say
Gemini.
that.
I'm just saying we're gonna go
Oh,
the way
the sun
as
goes.
late as possible. So, I want to say before we start plugging things.
I don't like it when you say that either.
Please shut up.
That's a lie. Jim loves it when you say stuff like that.
So what I want to say is we are going to record some episodes of the Making Comics podcast tomorrow. And if
Yes.
you guys
Wait, for free?
have enjoyed these conversations,
We're getting paid. I don't know.
you're for free.
Sorry, Jim. Again, the Make-A-Wish
But
thing.
if you've
is
enjoyed
just-
this conversation and you would like a much more structured conversation, then go subscribe so that when they release the ones that we record tomorrow,
Yeah.
which will be coming out.
Oh yeah, it'd be
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Couple
Something
weeks.
like
Okay,
that.
cool. So go subscribe and do that because that's a great podcast. It's very fun and
Thank you.
entertaining.
Yeah.
Very comics focused. It's not like some of those that's like all things pop culture or whatever. Like,
Right.
and so it's great.
Very
Um,
Making Comics book, as
Yeah,
the name
exactly.
implies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're not
But I mean,
talking about the rated. Well, sometimes you talk about comics you buy and
Reviews
stuff,
and stuff.
I mean,
but
that's-
it's
that's
mostly-
Once you get an hour in,
Yeah, that's the end.
Yeah,
It's the
It-
craft.
It ain't
Which is
called
still
faking comics.
very much part of that.
Yeah.
You know, I
We
mean,
like
a lot
to
of-
try to create like a rounded product. Like
Yeah.
we want you to get information. We love to give the information. We love to talk about the stuff we're doing, but we also want you, the listeners, to know who we are as people, and that's what makes podcasts more enjoyable because you feel like you know them. You know, it's just like
Right.
like us, like talking to you guys on the Artcasters or just listening or watching Scott's channel or Gary's, and like it's just like being with each other on the internet and like getting to kind of know you that way and to see it's like kind of reinforced in person is cool.
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah, it's and I like the same sentiment about comics themselves as well, because the idea of it's not a machine, like it's a person sitting down and making that, especially indie comics, and there's a lot of that kind of personality that comes through. So,
Thanks.
but I was saying, I mean, they could name it Making Comics just like they name it Comic-Con, and it could still be
Yeah.
a nonsense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
smorgasbord of a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you are interested in seeing me serialize a story live, the quick pitch is that we're breaking the laws of physics a little bit. Time is breaking down, and people are becoming unmoored from the present moment. And if they slip backwards past their birth or forwards past their death, then they're done. So that's why it's important to slap babies and old people. And if you want to if you want to read those, I'm about 10 or 11 chapters in, and you can watch, listen to, or read those if you go to CoreyKerr.com/book. And if you want to go to get on my email newsletter and tell me whether it works, go to CoreyKerr.com/email. Gary, where can we find your stuff?
You can find me either here on YouTube under my name, Gary Hodges, or on Instagram under the name of my comic, Dinosaurs vs. Marsbots, Dinosaurs vs. Marsbots. I'll probably be doing a video on my own channel in the next couple days. It might be about this retreat. It might be about using references for drawing people. Who knows? I
Tomorrow?
have no
Might it be
idea.
tomorrow?
It won't be tomorrow. No. Monday or Tuesday, maybe. But anyway, new comic coming next year. So there's going to be a lot more talking about it on my channel, about the drawing of it and about me losing my mind drawing it. So tune in for that.
Scott?
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel, Circworks Art Labs on YouTube, where you can see me reverse engineer all kinds of cool nostalgic ephemera for the Gen X generation. Just check it out. It's hard to explain, but if you're into imagine instead of Fun Dip, we create Sad Dip, and it's got gross flavors or something like that. That's the kind of stuff I'm doing over there. Also have a website called circworks.com, where if you go to, you can check out my comic book, Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story, which I am wrapping up. And then hopefully soon we'll get the last issue. And then I kind of gave you guys a little preview, but you'll see what's coming up next for me. But on the comic front anyway. But yeah, go check out my stuff at circworks.com.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Scott Lost and I, of course, do the Making Comics podcast. We have new episodes every Monday. The premise of the podcast is what'd you do last week, and then we go from there. So that's, so please check that out if you don't already. Subscribe on your local podcatcher and grab a new episode every Monday. For me, you can find all my books at keitharfoster.com. The 3 books that I currently have published, I'm working on more, but the ones I have right now are Kadoja, which is Giant Monsters meet H.P. Lovecraft. 3 Protectors, which is Kung Fu in Space, and Animals ... want to kill you. And the coyotes down the hill may, in fact, be exiles from the comics. So I have some new. Issue 1 is already out for Animals. Issue 2 is going to be solicited through all your local comic shops soon. So, and you'll be able to get issue 1 as well.
You
So,
can you get the extended Kickstarter
late
too,
backer.
yeah, that's right. And I also Animals #2. If you see this and are interested, I have late pledges switched on for the Animals #2 Kickstarter, which ended about a week or 2 ago. So
Okay.
if you want to go back it, you still can. There's still a couple weeks left before I switch that off. And it's just look up Animals #1-2 and it'll show up.
Josh, where can we find your stuff?
All right. You can check out, if you're into Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind, if you put it in a blender with Ghost World and you like the flavor of that, you would probably like Jacob's Apartment. Story about 2 young 20-somethings kind of figuring out their lives when their lives are turned upside down by the loss of a loved one and also a broken relationship. And as the 2 roommate characters find themselves drawn together, dreams and reality start interweaving in a doomed romance story. So I think you guys would dig that. And also check out 2 Stories, which is a story about faith and mental illness. And if you like monsters, if you're going to pick up Kadoja or any of these wonderful books, you should also just get Modern Monsters. It's my new album that's all monster themed. So, yeah.
Nice. You can find me at Scott Lost, SCOTTLOST on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, Facebook.com/Scott Lost. And then, of course, you go to accidentalaliens.com. Second Shift is minimum wage superheroes. Wanderers Mill Sonda is anthropomorphic dinosaurs versus humans. And there's Astounding Adventures, which has Paradise Hills and Granite in it, which are a couple of my other properties, all at accidentalaliens.com.
Just go to jimluhan.com. That'll take you to my YouTube page and subscribe there, because there's it's very sad. It's sad and sickly that I have so few subscribers.
It's a live stream to his car where he lives.
Scott.
Jim's been alone this whole time.
Oh, reunited, and it feels so good.
It's a little late. Little
Those are late.
It's a little late for that booty call.
But also talk about Animation Plus.
Oh, Animation Plus. Yes, you can watch my stuff on television. On Animation Plus, which right now is on the Samsung Play network, and soon will be on other platforms, including Freeview, Tubi, all of them.
CPO.
Yeah, Chubby Films, the whole bit. But I just really want Razzers. It'll be on, skedaddle.org. We'll have it. I want
little TVs at gas stations.
Yeah, my stuff is playing at every Sizzler in the country that has a little TV that you put a quarter in it.
But only near the lettuce.
Yeah, but so do that. Go to YouTube, subscribe. I need more subscribers. But other than that, round of applause for our host, please.
Yeah.
Sorry if that was.
That was very generous. This place is beautiful.
And thank you for hosting. It's a lot of work.
Such a
lot
good
of work.
host.
to do.
As are you, sweetheart.
And this is the Artcasters. And if you're not on the list, we've got an email. Sign up in the description there, because today we didn't do it on Thursday, and so it's most of the time on Thursday nights. Sometimes it switches. It always switches whose channel it's on, and so to make sure that you know when it's going to happen live, get on that link in the description, and we will see you guys next week.
Great job, Corey. You can do that from now on.
You showed your hand.